Are we good to go? Okay. Welcome everyone to a great panel. So I'll be interviewing Michael Arrington of the TechCrunch and Arrington XRP Capital fame. So to give a little bit of background on our relationship, Michael has been an investor in Terra for the past 3 years, and we've collaborated on some great projects within those 3 years, most recently being Mirror Protocol, which is a synthetic protocol looking to create tokens that track the prices of real-world assets, starting with US equities. So Terra and Arrington Capital has collaborated quite closely on creating that synthetics protocol, and it's, shall we say, one of the hot things going on in DeFi these days with $100 million in TVL. So, let's hear it straight from the horse's mouth. Michael, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit for the crowd?
Yeah. Hey, Doe.
Hey.
Good to see you. You were in a car until about a minute ago with wrapped up with a scarf. Is it really cold in Seoul? I assume you're in Seoul.
It's minus 10 Celsius, and for context, this is my scarf. It's purple and pretty.
What is minus 10 Celsius in American? That's it's like 20. It's like 15 degrees or something Fahrenheit. I don't know.
It's pretty much Alaska. Yeah, it's pretty much Alaska. So
yeah.
It's not great.
Well, it's t-shirt weather at my undisclosed location, so I'm not envious right now. I know that we have half an hour, but I also know that audience is still trickling in. And so I can introduce myself, but do we know what we're going to talk about here for half an hour? Is it just Mirror and how awesome you are, or are we going to talk about anything else?
No, for this, I think, most of the spotlight is going to be on you. So we're mainly going to be talking about what the difference is. And like, obviously, throughout your time at Crunch Fund and TechCrunch, you saw sort of like the last 10 years of Silicon Valley in sort of traditional technology, and then we're going to be talking about how that's different from crypto tech.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
But generally, as an investor, the only interesting thing about me are the companies that where'd you go? Oh, there you are, that I invest in. And you're one of them, right? But sure, we could talk about other stuff too. I have been in and out of Silicon Valley my whole life since right after college. I went to law school at Stanford, and that kind of brought me into Silicon Valley. And then I was an entrepreneur and started companies, and most of them failed. Some of them didn't fail. TechCrunch was the funnest one that I did, and that was just being a blogger. But after that, yeah, I became an investor. So after I sold TechCrunch in 2010, I became a blogger, and I stopped being a blogger, became an investor, and raised my first venture fund, and started doing that, and that was a lot of fun. And we invested in. That was a good year. 2010, 2011, 12, those were good years to invest in Silicon Valley because we got into Uber and Airbnb and Pinterest. We passed on DoorDash. I can't believe, I was just looking the other day, we were going to put $200,000 into DoorDash's, like their first round after Y Combinator, and every 50K you put in was worth like $80 million. And so
wow.
If I had done that, I would not be here today. I would be like on an island somewhere that I had purchased. But so that, that was like literally $250 million that I threw away because I just didn't get it. So I'm not the best investor you'll ever meet, but we got lucky with a couple of other good ones. But in 2017, I just got completely fascinated with crypto. And I still love startups. I still invest in startups on my own, but I got a little tired of being a VC because as fast as venture moves, crypto moves like 10 times faster. And that is so much more interesting to me. You make or lose money, and there were a couple of years of a lot of losing money, but you make or lose money like that. Like before you even know what happened, you've done well or not. And it's like takes 5-6 years in venture to do it. And so that was what really got me interested, is just how much more quickly this industry moves and how much more quickly everything iterates, because it's such a young industry that all the infrastructure being built now is like hugely important. Someday it will slow down, but not anytime soon. And so I started a crypto fund in late 2017. We launched a hedge fund, and it was largely backed by XRP holders. And so we named it Arrington XRP Capital. And I've been doing that. I met you in 2018 for the first time, and you've made us fabulous amounts of money, and that's what I've been doing.
Yeah. So, folks, just for the record, we cannot know for sure that this undisclosed location that Michael is in right now is not an island that he has purchased. So let's not rule out the possibility that he might be fabulous.
It's not an island that I purchased. So yeah, just in a house. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, so that's really fascinating. Understood how the industry is more exciting.
What's on the board behind you? Is it like secret Luna mirror stuff back there? Like if we can decipher it, we can figure out whether to buy or sell, or is it just nonsense? What is that?
No, it's just some engineering diagrams for Anchor, which is something else that we're working on. So we gotta chat up about that.
Yeah, Anchor's next, huh?
Yeah. So.
Sorry, what were you saying? You asked a question.
Yeah. So, like the industry, the crypto industry definitely moves a lot faster than, shall we say, the rest of tech, or obviously faster than traditional industries. But how is it different investing in crypto versus investing in traditional venture?
Yeah. Well, when I did traditional venture, I was based in Silicon Valley for the most part, and Seattle, another sort of tech hub that isn't too far from Silicon Valley. And, you get used to meeting people and socializing deals with other investors. You kind of have to be in the club. Like if you're just a new founder, one of the hardest things is just meeting that first person that's in the club. And then once you've been brought in and they vouch for you, it gets easier. With crypto, it's so distributed, which is really nice, that we're doing deals all over the world. And that led me to travel quite a bit. And I met you in Seoul, Singapore all the time, Europe quite often, Hong Kong, before this year. It was great. And meeting entrepreneurs from all over the place. But there's a lot more fraud in crypto than there is in Silicon Valley startups. Because of that, you can meet investors without getting in the club first, which is good. But you have to keep an eye out for the fraud. And you can, I'm not talking about projects to get hacked. That's one thing you got to be careful of. But I'm just talking about out and out fraud. And we saw a bit of that in 2017 and 18. The amount of money changing hands just brought a lot of sketchy people into the industry that wanted to get rich quick and not build. And so we've had to learn a new skill of sort of eyeballing, people who are just full of shit, and excuse my language. And so that's one thing. But one of the nice things about investing in crypto is that in venture, it's either a total loss or you make good money. Sometimes you get your money back, sometimes you 10x or 100x, but generally 7, 8 out of your investments out of 10 are bad investments, and you write them off, and you get used to that. It's no big deal. In fact, sometimes when entrepreneurs fail, you want them to get right back in the ring with the new startup right away because you believe in them. In crypto, though, our losses are a lot less. And so we actually probably should have invested in even more deals. As a hedge fund, we have a trading side and a venture side. And the losses, if you can avoid the outright fraud, which for the most part we have, a bad deal, sometimes you get your money back, or 1.5 times your money back, or half your money back if you're measuring in Bitcoin price. And so you can actually be a lot more aggressive when you're 10xing or 50xing, as we've done with Luna, on some of your deals, and 6 or 7 of them are paying their money back, and only 1 or 2 are wipeouts. You can actually be a lot more aggressive in investing, and that's also been a lot of fun. Just saying yes a lot more often than I did in venture.
So, what do frauds look like in crypto, and what is the litmus test you use to sniff them out?
Well, it's actually, I was thinking, is there like a national stereotype? Like, are Americans more fraudulent, or Chinese? And it's actually that's not the case. We've seen some really sketchy stuff in Europe. We've seen some really sketchy stuff come out of China, but we've also seen some fantastic stuff coming out of China. I don't know how to answer that question. It's a good question. It's just smelling the bullshit, right? It's like a used car salesman and like just sensing that they're full of it and just saying no. I've seen some of these guys though take top tier investors, like 4 or 5 top tier investors for a ride, and it's a wipeout. And so it's hard sometimes. But we're just learning to avoid, I don't know, just those slick used car salesman types. So
Right. Yeah,
it's not a good answer, and it's not quite right, but
yeah, I guess it's hard to explain in words, like how a bullshit tester works. So I think
how
you're
what works?
right on the money there. How a bullshit sniff test works. It's kind of like you kind of know. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one thing, like when I met you guys, you and Daniel, I'll always remember meeting you at that hotel in Seoul. And first of all, you guys like wanted to meet, and I wanted to meet, but I couldn't come see you right away because I was doing an interview. And one of you guys, it's probably you actually, texted me and said, hey, if it's not right or whatever, maybe it's not good to meet. Because I think you misunderstood I wasn't blowing you up. And I said, no, I want to meet. So like right there, like you weren't hungry. Now, by the way, at that point, I think Binance had invested, and Polychain and Hashed, of course, one of the most important investors in the world, and certainly owns Korea. So you weren't desperate for money, but just you guys came across as like not needing it. And then also your and Daniel's background were so stellar. I mean, being like top Korean entrepreneurs who'd been educated in the US, had been successful in the tech startup e-commerce side. It just, it's a no-brainer. And so we kind of look for more people like you to invest in. It's harder though if you're like a 20-year-old just out of college or just dropped out of college, you haven't had the experience that you and Daniel had. It's kind of harder. Like if you're for real, you're not a used car salesman. You're not trying to steal from people. It's very, very hard to get that first break, and that's the hardest thing I think as an entrepreneur to figure out. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'm glad we met because it's been a great relationship.
Well, we've never sold any Luna. Has any other investor not ever sold any Luna? There probably were some, right?
that's probably more perfect for a non-public venue.
But we have never sold any Luna, and I think because of that, we actually ended up buying a lot more. And I think because of that, we built a special relationship with you where there's a lot of trust, right? And so when new projects come out, we try to work with you closely on that. And you keep making us money, so we're going to keep, investing in whatever we can with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the confidence. So to sort of shift the conversation into DeFi a little bit, so I would say sort of the predominant theses behind a lot of crypto investors and what's getting a lot of people interested in the crypto industry now is this idea of DeFi. So what is DeFi? What's interesting about it? And what are some of the things should a good investor do to sniff out the good things in DeFi versus the bad?
Yeah, well, a lot of our DeFi investments are recent, and we'll see if we sniffed out the good and the bad. Although I think that everyone we've invested in, a lot of those are on our website at Arrington XRP Capital. Anything that we're allowed to, that's publicly known. So we have to see. We frankly, I know that Luna is considered DeFi now, but I didn't. We weren't thinking the words DeFi when we invested in you. But now it is. And Ample is another company we invested in, quite a while ago that's done very well, and it's sort of considered DeFi. But, we missed a lot of the first round of companies that have done pretty well. We've missed a lot of them. Some of them were fair launch, like Mirror is, where we didn't have the opportunity to invest, beforehand. But, we also missed, getting into them later. So I'd say we did a pretty hard pivot in the spring to really looking at DeFi hard, and I think we've made some good bets there. But there are people there are investors that were on it like a year ago or more, and we know some of those investors, and we respect them because they were like looking at DeFi before DeFi was cool. And honestly, some of those guys I think are good ones to talk to, like what they saw a year ago in synthetics and some other stuff that has done quite well. But, basically it's the same thing we always look for. We're looking for good teams with a big idea, like an almost audacious, ridiculous idea, and they want to change the world a little bit. And, Mirror, again, I don't want to only talk about you, but I truly love what you guys are doing. And Mirror is a big effing idea, right? I mean, you want to be able to, and you are now because you've launched, allow people to buy, among other things, synthetic equities. And outside of the US, it's super hard. I think you were telling me at one point that if you live in Korea and you want to buy US equities, Tesla, Apple, all the good stuff, don't you pay like a 30% tax on gains or something like that? Or what is the tax? It's some ridiculous amount.
Yeah, so I mean, to put things in context, like the capital gains tax on single stocks for foreign equities is 26%, whereas for domestic equities is 0.3. So one of the interesting things that we've been sort of seeing with COVID is that, you know, protectionist policies in a lot of different countries is starting to strengthen. So what that means is that capital controls on trying to keep assets like within the country and not leak out to US equity markets is strengthening across the globe. So, you know, there's talks of hiking that 26% tax to 35, which is,
and that's ridiculous, right? That's not like a fair tax. So what you've done is you've done an end around in a perfectly legal way where people don't have to pay those taxes, I assume, because how are they going to track it? And it's not like you're facilitating drug deals or like something illegal. It's just allowing people to buy equities because that's what they want to buy or to mint them. And, you know, that's pretty amazing because you don't have stockbrokers. You know, there's a company I invested in called Bitwise, which is a kind of a big deal here in the United States. And it's just it's like a top 10 crypto index that is market weighted. It's not a big deal, but you could invest in it. And they just went public in the sense that you can buy and sell on the over-the-counter markets. You can buy and sell BITW now. And so I've been liquidating my position in that because I want more supply. But anyway, the damn markets close at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, West Coast time. And it's like 3 o'clock. I want to sell some Bitwise. And it's just jarring to me that like, no, you can't. You got to wait till tomorrow to do that. And so, you know, what you guys are doing on the building side is pretty awesome.
Yeah. Are there, so for people that are listening and are sort of haven't been looking at DeFi as closely, what do you think are some of the applications that can be built using DeFi that you couldn't using traditional tech?
You mean that hasn't been built yet?
Yes. Or what are some examples of things that have been built that people are not aware of?
That first question though is a funny one because it's like, if I knew the answer to that, I wouldn't be telling it to you guys. And I also wouldn't be an investor because investors are like, it's like, you know, entrepreneurs build, investors who can't build just become investors because we have capital. So I have no idea. I look forward to meeting the people that are building those things though. But look, it's simple. DeFi is simple. There's no middleman. You don't need to go to a bank and ask for a loan. You don't have to go to a bank to deposit your money and get a miserly like interest rate. You can do all those things directly. Now you do have to be able to use smart contracts, and you have to be fairly crypto literate to do this. That all will change, right? I mean, I know that I have heard rumors of some of the stuff Mirror is launching that is pretty easy for a non-sophisticated person to use. And that's all changing like next year, and it's fantastic. And so that's it. It's just allowing people to be their own bank, and that's not just like a tagline. That's like a real thing. And you can allow people of modest incomes to invest money, to borrow money, to loan, to do whatever they need to do, and without any kind of middleman taking a fee, or more importantly, saying no. That's awesome. That's world changing. That's a big deal. That's as big of a use case for ETH and other chains like you guys that are, I think you're built on Cosmos, right? That are, it's as big of a use case for those chains as Bitcoin is for just being money. It's a really big deal, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the really interesting things about DeFi is that, so for things like Bitcoin and sort of generic cryptocurrencies, there's been sort of like a psychological barrier, because you need to understand new systems in order to be able to embrace it as an asset class. Whereas for DeFi, a lot of the things that are being created on the DeFi stack now sort of replicates sort of the existing services and use case that exist in traditional markets, but with value propositions that make them far superior. So for example, the ability to 24/7, the ability to trade against like counterparties across the entire world instead of trading just against very sizable counterparties that are trying to rip you off. Like the ability to earn higher yields, pay lower fees. So I think all of those things are super, super interesting. But probably what's become evident over the last 2 months is that a lot of the things that are coming out in DeFi, and I think that it goes back to, one of the earlier things you said about sort of sniffing out the bad. There's been a lot of accidents and hacks and different things that are happening in DeFi. How do you think the industry should change over the next, let's say, 2 years or so in order to go to the next 10x?
Well, I mean, you're suggesting, so you made a suggestion there. You linked hacks and improperly built software to, getting that fixed to being able to go to 10x what they are now. I'm not sure that's the answer. I mean, one of the beautiful things about software that Silicon Valley has taught us is that, build fast and break things is a very useful business model. It's more painful in crypto because you're dealing with real money and you're dealing with like other people's money, and some of them aren't wealthy and can't necessarily afford it. So it makes people want to say, slow down, make everything bulletproof, get everything like reviewed and make sure it's all perfect. First of all, I don't think you can make everything perfect. I think you have to release it and let the real world bang away at it. I think the key thing though is not telling people to slow down. It's telling users not to engage with young projects unless they fully understand the risks. And one of the nice things is people are starting to fully understand the risks. We get these hype cycles and people think it's free money, and it is free money until it isn't. And these people get hurt and you hear the stories, and I think it tells more people, wait, maybe I should just slow down and not necessarily get involved in these things, or only a small amount of money to test it out. And I think it's a self-healing system in that way. But again, I don't think the answer is to slow down or make things bulletproof. So far, I don't think Mirror's had any problems at all, right? At least I haven't heard of anything. And I'm hoping it won't. And you guys are a mature software organization and have knowledge of building these kinds of systems. So I assume nothing's going to go wrong. And we've taken at this point a pretty substantial position into Mirror and a huge position into Luna. So we're betting on we would get hurt badly if something did happen. But again, we're not 100% in Mirror because that would be foolish right now until we really understand, like what's going to happen there. I think that's the right answer. I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we've really started to think about as these assets become more and more composable. So for example, like some of the things that we're working on now is linking up Mirror, which is our synthetics equity protocol, and then Anchor, which is our savings protocol, and then creating a system whereby by using anchored tokens as collateral for the Mirror system, you have synthetic equities that earn dividends that is analogous to the savings rate that you can get on Anchor. So for example, like just by holding an Apple stock, you will get in fiat stablecoin, 8 to 9% returns in the form of dividends. So that's like a really interesting use case of how you can connect together a savings protocol and a synthetics protocol.
Right? Because the underlying collateral is being used to generate yield somehow. Where does the yield come from? Are you just making it out? Where is it coming from? That's one of the things about DeFi that confuses me. When you have all this yield, where the hell is it actually like? If it's all just coming from inflation, it's not real. It's not sustainable, right? It's the idea is to jumpstart a network effect. But here, I assume you're not doing that. So how does that work?
Yeah, so I think you hit upon an interesting point. So if you look at DeFi, all the yields that are being generated is being generated out of one of two avenues. Like the first avenue is token inflation. And then the second avenue is some sort of arbitrage opportunity between the spot market and the futures market. So if you feel like you can borrow money to earn a higher yield to capture an arbitrage opportunity in the future, then people are willing to pay that interest. So the interesting thing about Anchor is that it pays interest from exogenous inflation, right? So how it works is that when a user deposits stablecoin collateral, it uses a part of those stablecoins to acquire staking positions across a lot of different networks. And then the token inflation coming in the form of staking rewards that are accrued to each of those positions gets conferred to the stablecoin depositor in the form of the yield. So in some sense,
I fully understand. So you're saying it's magic, basically. Like you lost me halfway through. What exogenous inflation is that a thing? Did you just make that term up? What does that mean?
No, I mean, there's no inflation in the Anchor system that's powering the yield. It's basically inflation in Ether, inflation in Cosmos Atom, inflation in Terra Luna, inflation in DOT, so on and so forth. So in some sense, it's drawing upon the fact that other systems are just printing money. So it's reallocating that newly printed money to power yield.
When can I mean, the key question here is, when can I start buying Anchor? Because you haven't said a word on this, and including our private talks, I ask all the time, and it's like I never asked. So what's the deal with that? When, how, now?
No, we don't have any secret plans that we're hiding from you. We just haven't really thought that much about it.
But it's December, and you said December, right? I mean, it's like, it's late. Are you thinking January, February now? What's the timing on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, given, we just did like a token release for Mirror, and we're doing something regarding that. We're going to be launching the Anchor protocol first with a couple of exciting B2B partners. And then, so we're going to prove out product for a couple months before we...
Exciting what partners? What kind of partners?
I'll call you later.
Why are we not one of these partners? I feel like I'm like the old, like, yeah, I'm not interesting anymore. Why am I not one? Anyway, we should probably have this conversation offline. But so it sounds like Anchor's coming, and you're going to tie it into Mirror in interesting ways. So that's cool.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is that once you start to compose a lot of these systems together, you can also use, like, for example, options markets to create a fixed income product on top of Anchor. So the thing is, like, once these systems start to layer together, then like the complexity of the software becomes really, really high. So even if in isolation you tested the software to work really well, sometimes when you start to compose it together with lots of different systems, it breaks. So like a classical example of this is like Compound. So the Compound Oracle uses Coinbase's Oracle software. And then what happened was that either due to manipulation or due to short-term market blips, like the price of DAI on Coinbase went up to $1.30, which led a bunch of positions on Compound being liquidated, because that's the way that the protocol was designed. So like a lot of the interesting discussions that are coming out in DeFi now is whether the protocol was designed for such a purpose or it was not. You end up with lots of situations where capital is more at risk than what the user originally intended for. So that's one of the interesting things that I think are coming up.
Yeah, the Oracle problem is a big one. That's a whole other conversation. So, are we going until the hour, or do we just can we talk forever? Does somebody cut us off? What do we do? Because we can talk about some other stuff too. There's a moderator. Is a moderator going to jump in and like just turn us off at some point?
Who is the moderator, by the way? I thought it was me.
You are. Okay.
Okay.
What else were you going to talk about? We got 2 minutes left.
Yeah, I mean, so if you can share, what are some of the exciting stuff that you're looking at now? Like, without sharing names, is there like a category in DeFi that you should be looking into?
Well, we're a general fund, so we look at everything. I mean, we really do. We try to meet just about every company if we can. We're very excited about the Polkadot ecosystem right now and some of the new stuff coming out there. We have a few investments in Akala, Moonbeam, and there's others I should remember that I think are we're excited. We're not as excited as we are like with Mirror. That's pretty cool. But there's definitely some cool stuff with Polkadot, and we have high hopes for it. And then we're also starting to look a lot at NFTs. And I know that NFTs are not as sexy as DeFi right now, but there's some infrastructure being built there that we think, like, second generation infrastructure, because it's a real problem right now on Ethereum with the gas pricing and the speed that we're excited about as well. So those are two areas we're very focused on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're just out of time here. Chris?
Is that Jeremy? Is he on next?
Hey, dude.
Are you on? Are you speaking now? I would love to interview you. What do you guys
keep going with Michael and Jeremy right after this.